Now, recent statistics say women are gravely underrepresented in Nigerian politics, as it currently has the lowest rate of female representation in parliaments across the continent. According to the International Parliamentary Union globally, Nigeria ranks 181 out of 193 countries, with less than 6% of the national parliament members. Sad enough, provisions to increase the percentage of women in elected and appointed positions to 35% had come with no success. Women are not alone in this, as the youths have also been scarcely represented. While registered youth voters make up more than half of the voter population of 84 million, the young generation has hardly had any say in the country's politics, despite the ray of hope that permeated in 2018 when President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Not Too Young to Run bill into law. Joining us to discuss this and more is a journalist and political analyst, Francess Olisa-Ogbonaya. Welcome to Newsday.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Yes, this is a very vital topic to touch on as we look to the run-up to 2023. Now, what would you say has been the hindering, or do you say the stumbling block to both women and youth getting involved or being enlisted into political candidacy?
Okay, in Nigeria is a special case. It's a special case because there are many factors, socio-cultural factors, when I talk about socio-cultural factors, that includes religion too, because that's one of the major challenges facing women when it comes to women. Then when it comes to youth, that one is on another category on its own. So we look at the socio-cultural factors where in Nigeria, in some parts of the country, a woman is not supposed to be heard at all. So you struggle at that point to get heard at home before you start talking about elective positions. And these things are issues that had lingered for ages. So they have formed some of the bedrocks of our political policies and political inclinations. So sometimes in those parts of the country, when women begin to talk about politics, it sounds alien, it sounds so foreign. And the other part, which claims to be much more liberal, both in culture and religion, tends to copy that ugly part of the socio-cultural factors. But unfortunately, it's so wrong, because when you look at the population, according to what the statistics released, and women are as much as men. For them to say women about 99 million and men were 101 million, what's the difference? So we're about 50-50%. If we're about 50-50% when it comes to the population, what is stopping the government from giving us 50% representation as men? We have never ever asked for 50. We are asking for 35, and many states can't even consider 10%. Talking about youth, where do we start from? For example, Nigerian politics is very capital intensive. A youth is person, according to United Nations, somebody who is between the age of 18 to 35. Some people who are between the age of 18 to 35 are still struggling to eat, are still struggling to feed. And at that point, how do they get money? Signing the Not Too Young to Run bill isn't enough. We must start talking about how to make our politics less money-based. Because if the kind of Nigerian politics we play now is what is going to keep playing, the youth will never ever get represented. Where is the money? Like I said, capital intensive, starting from the political parties. You see a political party let me see, for example, the last state election, the PDP as a party, which was the ruling party, sold the chairmanship election form for 1,050,000 naira. And these are elections that are meant for youth. How many youths could afford 1,050,000? That's apart from what ABSEC, INEC would charge. They will later come and charge another 500,000 naira. Altogether, you are supposed to pay 1.5 million naira for a chairmanship form. For a primary election, they've not considered about the cost of consultation, the cost of campaign. At that point, how many youth could afford that? So these are the issues and many more. Finance is capital intensive, then socio-cultural factors. And this one is one of the major problems facing women. For example, apart from the religious aspect of faith, for example, a woman who is from... This is, in fact, it's a big issue, because we've gone to court, many people are in court. A woman who is from, let's say... for example, let me give an example. When the president appointed ambassadors, the woman from Ondo State was nominated as ambassador representing Ondo State. There were reports that youth of Ondo State, people of Ondo State, protested that woman is not from Ondo State, that she's from Rivers. But this woman is somebody who was already married to an Ondo person. So at that point, what becomes the fate of a Nigerian woman? You know, you are considering your political future, you are considering your marriage. Oh, what happens? You found a spouse who is from Kogi State and you are from Imo State, for example. You begin to see what happens to my political ambition. If I get married to somebody from Kogi State, and at a certain point I begin to print poster, they will not see Shineye Audu. They will say, no, she's not part of us. We are not going to vote for her. You know, so these are issues, so many issues. And for us to start making it work, we can begin to sit down. There should be legislative actions towards these issues. Speaking English about them wouldn't work, wouldn't be enough.
All right.
Writing about them wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, Francess, well, what you pointed out about the woman who is married to an Ondoman, it cuts across. It also happens to men. And that's why the talk of where you reside, you should be able to contest for election and not basically where you come from. But that said, you've talked about legislating. What are that actions? I mean, it's one thing to identify the problem. That's halfway to it being solved. But what other things do you think can be done to get around these problems? You've enumerated that of culture, that of percentage of women in politics, and that of finances. What other things do you think need to be done to get around these problems?
Okay, yes. When I talk about legislative actions, there should be laws mandating political parties to at least make the forms free for women, for young persons. Not just the not too young to run big is perfect, it's good. But like I said, the Nigerian youth, judging from what they did with NSAS and every other of their protests, shows that they are politically conscious. They are even ready to become leaders. But sometimes this money is a problem. So if we can look at legislative actions where political parties are mandated to give forms free to persons who are between the age of 18 to 35. And women, to a certain extent, for some certain positions, free. You know, at that point, we should begin to, then nothing will actually work. Nothing will actually work if we don't address the issue of independent candidacy. If Nigeria gets the issue of independent candidacy right, at that point, we will not pay so much attention to political parties. If they decide to sell their form for 20 billion naira, it becomes their business. Then again, if a candidate decides to be independent, with the kind of the electoral system Nigeria practices, there will be a problem. So that's why when I talk about legislative actions, I mean, for example, legislative actions mandating parties to actually begin to consider giving out forms. Then legislative actions approving independent candidacy. Then legislative acts looking at the electoral acts. For example, if we don't get the e-voting correctly, we might not make headways with our electoral process. And then at that point, even somebody is an independent candidate, they will meet you at the poll where they'll be buying votes, because this is our political reality, so we can pretend about them, you know. And they know you can't. Even if you run away from the money you would have spent as within the political structure, they'll wait for you at the polling booth where they will buy one vote as much as 20,000 naira, 10,000 naira, and at that point you end up wasting your time. So if we can get some of the electoral acts correctly, then constitutionally get the issue of independent candidates right, then the issue of getting political parties to understand that forming political parties is not a business venture, because most of them are looking at it as if it's a business. So at that point, that's what I mean by legislative actions.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Just maybe looking at it from a short-term, long-term perspective. So I just want to pursue with you a couple of options that are coming to mind at this time. Okay. Some would say that we have the numbers on our side. By we, I'm speaking of both women and the youth, like you mentioned, 50%. Yeah. So is it not possible for us to come together and sponsor a candidate since the numbers are on our side? That's one. The other aspect is the long-term option, because you mentioned socio-political constraints. And, you know, I think the ability to have an independent mind enough to want to self-determine your own future may come from maybe issues like housing. Like you say, a lot of young people don't even have the wherewithal to fend for themselves, let alone looking to pursue a political candidacy. So should we be looking to maybe do some collaboration to get, you know, young people being first-time home owners as young as 22 years of age?
That's what the points you raise are very, very valid. They are good options. But like I insist, if we don't get some of our legislative actions right, which includes these electoral acts, sponsoring a candidate will be like trying to slap the wind. You understand? Because I say most of it's a structure. Nigerian politics looks like a cartel thing. You understand? They'll wait for you at that poll where they will vie vote, and no matter how the numbers the person your whatever got at the poll, they get nullified at the other end. So if we must get it right, there must be urgent step to address issues bordering on electoral acts, issues bordering on independent candidacy, and like you said, even if we sponsor a candidate, which I understand is a very good. You raised a very, very valid point. I think it's also nice, but they will wait for you at that poll. Our electoral act is flawed. There's a problem with that act. We must get e-voting correctly. We must get some of these things correctly. If we don't get them correctly, I don't know. We're expecting before the president goes, he looks at the Electoral Act again, then, put some of these things in place without the Electoral Act being fixed. And there are some of these things. Youth, we're not going to get. But our problem, what we're asking now is this. Since elective position is a bigger issue, what is stopping the presidency, the governors, from appointing women and young persons? These ones, they don't need to contest about them. Why? Why are they not feeling very comfortable with young persons? And most of these people are persons who became presidents, governors at about 30, 29.
Good, Francis. Well, maybe that's where the women in politics already have to come in. Maybe some of them who have been appointed, maybe some of them who have been legislators, who are even still legislators. Let me ask you how the transition has been from journalist, to politics.
Okay.
What has been the challenges? And maybe I should add too, who have been your mentors and how have you been able to learn from them on how to ride the turf, that you are in?
Okay, transitioning from journalism to politics, it has not been easy. I'm still in the process. Of course, as a journalist, moving into politics, politicians are literally scared of you. They feel you know too much. They feel you have too much information. It takes them time to begin to trust you. That's the truth. Every other person who transitioned from journalism core journalism to politics also experienced that. Then again, but the people would trust you more because they would understand that you will be more sincere, and that's the truth. They believe that we haven't been there, having been a journalist, being in the street, that you would understand their problems more. But the problem, it remains the structure. Then again, so of course, the financial challenges. As journalists, we don't really earn much, and you're coming in to contest with people who had been, most of them who had been, even if they don't have money on their own, they have been political followers of some godfathers. They have believed to have served some people. My boss, many kind of my boss. So you coming in, sometimes you appear as a threat to them. So I faced those things, and I did face them, and I'm still facing them. But I am not deterred. Because one thing about decision to go into politics, transitioning from journalism, is the fact that is the intention, which is usually very, very genuine, because as journalists, we've been there, we've covered stories, we've covered events, we've seen Nigeria in raw terms, much more than most of them who are just politicians. So most times when we transition like that, we are doing that because of the love we have for the people, because of what we have seen. And there are women there also who had actually done well. People like Uche Kunife of Anambra State, the senator. I think I like the fact that coming from a state like Anambra, where there are many money bags, where there are people who can throw out hundreds of millions for even if something as paltry as a local government election, she has been able to hold sway. She has been able to actually keep striving, because like I say, it is not easy. I think Uche Kunife is also doing well. A couple of them, but literally it's not easy for Nigerian women in politics. And you are saying we have them in the legislation who are supposed to lead these things. How many of them out of 400 and something? How many are they? Out of the senators, 109, they are about 7. So how do you expect them to? What are they expected to say? They can't do much. They can only try. They can only influence. It's at that point. So we're expecting the presidency, the governor, and a couple of them to begin to, even if we don't get the elected position, let them begin to give us the appointed positions. So from there, we can begin to actually,
All
so
right.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. We didn't have time to ask you about your Abia politics, contesting for the local government chairman. All right. Thank you so much. We wish you the best there, Francess Olisa-Ogbonaya.